This podcast was recorded on July 16th, 2022. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and people outside the binary. Broken Class is back in session. I'm your discussion leader, Thomas Radiant Yuta. I can't really tell you how excited I am to be here. My girlfriend did the podcast, and I've been asking her to do it for a long time. Hailey Shug, my partner of almost 2 years, is here. She's a piano tutor. I think a bartender, right? Are you? Okay, cool. And Brian Shug, her father, who works at the Cascade Raptor Center and also creates some cool and thought-provoking content on TikTok. I want to ask you both, what is a controversial opinion that you have about anything? Let's start with Hailey.
Old people.
Yes?
They just shouldn't drive. They shouldn't be allowed to.
I've been in the passenger seat for a few of these articulations of this opinion. Brian, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, just that it probably wouldn't happen if this younger generation would just look after their elders like they should.
Okay, here's the thing.
Available.
If you can't see, you probably shouldn't be driving. And if your motor senses aren't working as well, you probably shouldn't be behind the wheel of a 3,000-pound vehicle.
And see, she's just an environmentalist. She doesn't think anyone should drive.
I am in complete
phase it out, starting with the older folks.
No, see, I am in complete agreement with her. No, absolutely, we should not be behind the wheel. The point I'm trying to make is the younger generation, you should be there whenever we need to go somewhere. And that way, we don't have to be behind the wheel. We just give you a call, you show up, and you give us a ride.
Have you ever heard of a taxi service?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, cool.
But
Those
you wouldn't
exist.
you wouldn't want us old people to spend our meager Social Security on taxes. I just know you wouldn't want that.
That won't exist for much
I can't help but
longer
think
anyway.
That's right. And so you're going to have to give us a ride anyhow. Might as well start now.
The potentially creepy angle on this is, I'm just an 80-year-old doddering man. Why is there not some spry young person to take me to the grocery store on demand?
There's DoorDash. Yeah,
Yes.
they bring you your groceries.
Wow, she's really just dropping all this deep knowledge, esoteric knowledge that none of us knew. This DoorDash, tell me more.
Or it's
right?
not DoorDash. It's like some other Postmates, I think.
So millennial, that's the proper term, correct?
Okay.
Is that where you fall in, millennial?
Yeah, I'm like right on the cusp.
Yes. So
and
all
Zoomer.
you are doing is you are giving total validation to the stereotypes out there about millennials. Here you know all about DoorDash, taxis. Do you guys even leave your home?
You know what I saw? That was really funny.
Didn't the De Niro movie Taxi Driver come out in the 70s? Why is this a millennial thing to know about taxis?
I saw this funny video that was like, why are old people allowed to drive when they can't? They don't even know how to read their emails. Like, it's just.
They used to have this thing called paper.
If
people
it wasn't
put messages on, okay?
If it wasn't for my generation, there wouldn't be emails. So I think we can end all this conversation right
That's
there.
why I said,
sunned
okay,
you.
the thing is you are not quite, okay, old people is kind of too broad. I should say people who have moved out of the age where they can safely drive a vehicle shouldn't drive. That's not necessarily old. Like, there's younger people who probably shouldn't drive either. So
are you now going to hit below the belt? Is the next thing gonna be a your mama comment? Because now you're going after my mama. You're going after that generation?
I don't know that she's going to take it that far.
your mom's dead.
Here's what I know about Hailey.
Oh my gosh.
Here's what I know about Hailey. She will either not take it that far,
I think
or she will not relent at all, and she'll take it way farther than that.
Yeah, that's exactly where it went. I hope that comment did not get recorded, because
you hope it wasn't recorded on a podcast.
Well, I'm just
we are
hoping
rolling, sir.
I'm just hoping that it didn't get picked up. Let me say, because she
By
wasn't
the media.
quite facing the mic.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Poor
Yes,
kid.
and
wow. That reminds me, when Hailey does play, now that you bring it up, Thomas, when once you get Hailey playing, she does tend to bend the rules a little bit. I remember one time and
bend,
she was in
fundamentally
junior high,
alter,
and we got into a little bit of a cut down battle. And so who could insult who the worst? It was Bryce, Hailey, and I sitting there.
Bryce being her brother.
And needless to say, Hailey won. She dropped the C word. And
Ooh.
for junior
Crustacean.
higher, then yes, exactly. We're talking the bearded clam. And I was really taken aback but she definitely won. That ended. So yes, she knows how to play, and
I
she
need
knows
to
how to
mention
play
that I
dirty.
didn't know what that word was at this time. I was maybe in 5th grade.
You're talking
And-
about the word cunt. Right?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
just
I didn't know that word. I heard
bearded
somebody
clam
say
is
it.
18 times worse. That is just there's so much imagery and texture to that. Anywho.
What is
So,
your controversial opinion, Dad?
Yeah.
My controversy, well, it changes weekly. I definitely
Can I
have
say
to say
one tiny thing before we move on to
Sure.
that? I do think in this country we've completely accepted, maybe through desensitization, the amount of motor vehicle injuries that exist. I mean, why are we so okay with it? We just say, well, that's the cost of having this incredibly connected highway system and all the great road infrastructure that we, I guess, once had. I mean, it still exists in its crumbling state in many places. But I mean, whether we're talking specifically about older people or just the idea that driving is a privilege, it shouldn't be looked at as this thing that everybody is afforded a right to all the time because I always thought of it as very social. You were interacting with other people in a way that really endangers everybody around you. So, I mean, with drunk driving especially is
Isn't
really
it the
irresponsible.
antithesis of social, though? Like, you're in this metal box in your own little area. You have your radio on. You're not really listening or caring about other people around you. Right?
Very much so, too. Yeah. But it should be. It should be looked as, hey, I see you at the light. I see you at the stop sign, and we're cooperating. But you're totally right. There's all that artifice and that blockage of people looking at it as, I mean, road rage, like you might not get, your blood boiling at somebody who's a pedestrian. Well, maybe you would because you're in your car. But, it's a guy in a car who did something bad. Fuck that guy. Anyway, just wanted to bring that point to it, too.
I find that very interesting. A little bit about what both you said. On the acceptance, I don't know if we've accepted and just become numb to the amount of deaths, because there's still always research trying to make cars more and more safer, trying to make the roads safer. The problem is we are such a large country. We are so spread out that in order to go somewhere in a practical manner, you either have to have mass transit that goes to all those outlying areas, or you're going to have to drive yourself there. Really, until we consolidate much better as a community, I really don't see anything more practical than having to get in your car or your truck and drive there. Hopefully, just those cars and trucks become much safer and reliant on something other than fossil fuels.
Right.
Now, to something Hailey said, being from a couple generations apart, because it almost seems that way. Life has changed so fast in the past 40 years that really, even though our age difference is really only 26, 27 years, it seems much greater than that.
Yeah.
Back when we were kids, the car meant freedom.
Yeah.
You climbed in your car, you went cruising 4th Avenue, you just drove up and down the road looking for other people that were driving their cars. You stop in a parking lot, meet up with a couple buddies you haven't seen in a bit, bullshit for a while, and then everyone jumps in their rigs and heads home. And there was a huge social aspect.
Right.
Anymore, I really think that seems lost. I don't see them used the same way. Now, it's curious to see how that social aspect has kind of disappeared from what I remember it being.
Where I think that you're probably going to go with your controversial opinion has similar connecting themes in terms of the diffusion of social cohesion, right? So just but let me ask you what your controversial opinion is about anything.
Wow. And, like I said, it changes often because there's so many things that you can have a controversial opinion about.
Yeah.
Right now, religion is first and foremost, I think, on everyone's mind. We've seen religion just get thrust into the forefront in a very aggressive manner.
Mm. I mean, we're
And
doing this after the Roe v. Wade decision, so that's
yes,
kind of what you're thinking of.
and what it makes me think of is back in the New Testament. You're reading stories, and you're reading about the Pharisees and the Sadducees standing on the street corners, loudly in prayer, showing off, and that's what it feels like today. It feels like people are more in love with the idea of their religion and the idea of a God than they're really in love with their God.
Mm.
I don't see people showing many examples, for instance, of what they claim to believe. Recently, I did a short video on TikTok with the old song. It's a children's song. You'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love.
Right.
And now, to throw that song out there, I'm curious, what would people know others are Christians by? Is it their behavior? Is behavior anywhere into play? Or is it just they're going to know they're Christians because they're so full of hate and bigotry?
I think it's because they say that they
Um,
are, not even necessarily
yeah,
that they show that they are.
I find it very shameful. And I think saying that would be very controversial because I'm sure that anybody who professes to be a Christian and falls in that group that I'm talking about would deny it and be
Well,
very offended by it.
sure. It reminds me a little bit of something said in politics, which is that the people who really should be doing the job are the ones who won't run. And think of that with Christianity or organized religion is probably the people that have the most integrity with the way they have committed their lives to the principles supposedly of being a better citizen of the world are probably the least likely to be grandstanding about it. They're some of the least likely to go in front of the abortion clinics and to the World Athletic Games where I'm working as an usher and, thump their beliefs out in a way that's aggressive, that is demeaning in many cases, But I would have to think, I from growing up a little bit in the church, I have some friends who, honestly, a lot of them are very disappointed with what you're talking about, Brian, with the way that they're something that's meant so much to them for decades of their lives. This sanctuary of self-reflection, communal thought is in many cases being spearheaded and championed in the most visible way by really the tenets of hate.
Yeah, and they're just going after the wrong stuff. I mean, let's throw out you mentioned Roe versus Wade.
Sure.
Most controversial. Where do I stand on it? Well, I'm pro-life, but and here's where it gets complicated. I'm pro-choice.
Right.
Well, I'm pro-choice because and I'm pro-life because I believe in preserving life.
Right.
I don't even believe in the death penalty. However, it's none of my business what somebody else chooses to do. And so therefore I'm pro-choice because that is between them and their maker. And, here we're basing our feelings and what we're going on based on a bunch of assumptions made throughout history where people have, just tried to take literally one of the most ambiguous books that has ever been written.
Oh, yeah.
And, we really have no idea what's in God's mind, and it's really wrong for us to try to throw ourselves up on the pedestal and try to start making those judgments. And so definitely, even though I'm pro-life, personally, I'm pro-choice when it comes to it because I believe God gave us all free choice. He made us all pro-choice, and it's up to other people to deal with their relationship and their maker when it comes down to what decisions they make,
Right.
especially when it comes to their body. That's just what I think about it.
Right. Well, it's if the argument that pro-life people make is that that is a human life that has rights.
Okay,
What
then
human-
why can't people drive in the carpool lane? Why don't we have health insurance already on a fetus when it's still a fetus? Why
Why
isn't
does it
there
have-
life insurance on a fetus? So if it were to miscarry, then the lady would get life insurance on their dead baby. Like,
Right.
why is it only a baby in certain ways where it could harm the woman carrying?
You know, those are such
Well,
good
and what-
points, and I could see a lawyer sitting there. And when you say, why can't we have a life insurance on that fetus? Because you're going to have somebody out there that will purposely cause a miscarriage
Yeah.
to
Oh yeah. Just
to
like
cash
people
in on
jump
that
in front of
life
cars and
insurance.
stuff.
But you can't pick and choose when it's a life. Like if it is
Exactly.
if it is a baby, it has to be a baby in every single situation. You can't pick and choose
Exactly.
each situation
Right.
where, oh, it's a baby this time. Oh, but you can't drive in the carpool lane. It's not a being.
Right.
Well, that's not what you're saying.
I was just thinking that if you give it the idea that it has the same rights as humans have, there isn't a human
Has more
that
rights.
there isn't a human, right, that has the right to parasitically depend on your body and womb. I mean, parasitically sounds demeaning, but I'm just truly saying that, well, you don't have to be the host of another person's human life. You have the individual right to choose not to do that. You know, and also people, okay, let me just say this. The very latest term abortions and whatnot, they're not legal in any states. You know, so people want to act like the abortions that are provided by a pill after week 3, 4, 5, or you know week 8, 9. What operation goes into that is like the same as you know a situation where the mother's life is really endangered and you're doing it in the some of the latest stages of pregnancy. It's just that's what I dislike too, is because I like specificity. I like let's make sure we're talking about the same thing, y'all. And I don't like people just saying every case of it is this.
But like,
And I'd really like someone to do their research on this, but it's my understanding less than 1% of abortions are performed in that last trimester, and they're not performed as regular abortions. That child is given birth, and if that child is able to survive, it is required by law that that doctor keep that child alive. So you're not killing a third trimester baby, and that's my understanding. But again, if
it would be
someone
in
could do the
situations where it
research on
couldn't
that,
survive.
yeah,
That they would do that. Well, and think about the I say women general in general that carry a baby. But let's say I can't remember the exact thing that it's called, but there's some babies who or fetuses that don't have brains. So if you make this woman have a child that doesn't have a brain, she literally can't push it out, and you would have to have a C-section, which is a very traumatizing surgery to the body.
Seems like the skull would
and
collapse.
then there basically is so she would have to be forced to have this child that she knows isn't going to survive. She'd have to go through her whole pregnancy telling people, like, they'd be like, congratulations, you're going to have a baby. And she'd be like, yeah, it's just going to die as soon as I have it. So she now has all of this trauma during this pregnancy, has to have it die, and has to deal with all of that afterwards. Talk about PTSD. Like, that's just...
You and I have talked about how postpartum depression for a viable child is already a thing, you know, so just in general, I mean... Okay, here's an interesting parallel is I think I've thought about this for a long time, that abortion and guns are issues where similar arguments will be made to support differing conclusions. But in general, I would come from the opinion on abortion that, like, where is it the government's role, right? Is it the government's role to make the decision? I would say no. Then with gun rights, I mean, they're both issues where, for example, a large contingency of each side, quote unquote, of our politics feels that there's a massive public health crisis where, you know, thousands upon thousands, maybe millions of people are dying, right? And we need to stop it. We need to stop all those people from dying. Some people think it's it's fetuses in the womb or people that are dying. Some people recognize or see that
It's
I don't know.
real children in the schools who are dying, who coat themselves in their classmates' blood so they don't get shot.
Well, what I like
Like-
about what we can talk about here is I'm talking with two people who I believe to be responsible gun owners.
Mhm.
So people on the other side kind of think that it's all just these like passive. Well, I don't know if you're a pacifist or not, but these hippie dippies, right? That are like leading the charge again for responsible gun ownership or just banning of certain military grade weapons, right, for civilians to have. But I'm talking to two people who actually understand that they want to be able to protect themselves in the most dire circumstances, but they don't believe. I don't think you both believe in unlimited, unfettered access to every kind of firearm.
Yeah.
So
I'll take this one first.
Yeah, go
So, it's kind of funny. I do believe in having access to just about any kind of firearm. However, I believe that if you're going to have firearms that are military grade, stuff that the cops aren't carrying on the street, I think you need to be properly licensed and properly trained to have those. The law enforcement should know that you have those kinds of weapons in case there's ever an incident that happens. They know, let's say a mass break-in, they have an idea what kinds of firearms those criminals might have access to. When it comes to gun ownership, I believe in the right to bear arms. I believe that the right was granted more for the use of a militia. However, to have firearms for hunting and
a well-regulated militia too.
yeah,
We never-
it is a
not
well-regulated
these
militia.
crazy psycho. I mean,
But I think we should have access. We have the freedoms in this nation. We should have access to those firearms. I think there needs to be better background checks. I think
Red
there needs to
flag
be
laws.
mental evaluations. And there's nothing wrong with that. These laws, unfortunately, I believe should be federal. I know small government. I don't like the government being up in everyone's business either. But if you have state-by-state laws, you're going to have different agencies that aren't communicating with other agencies. You're
Sure.
never going to know what law is what in wherever state you might be in. So therefore, I think it should be federally regulated, and all these agencies should be communicating directly together. And there should always be a cool-off period. Several of these mass shootings would have been prevented with a longer cool-off period, or at least possibly may have been prevented. We don't know that for sure.
explain what that means. Like when you're trying to purchase a
If you want to purchase an AR-15 or an AK-47, what's the harm in waiting 2 or 3 weeks for that gun to come? Why do you need to walk out of the store with it today? Do you really need to whip your pants down and fling your dick out like that? Or can you just be responsible and say, yeah, I finally got something I really wanted.
Right.
It'll be here in a few weeks. Decisions.
But would that
you know,
really prevent school shootings?
I believe it would help because in making the decision to buy a gun like that, you probably took a while to make that decision. What's the harm in waiting to get it? If you're making a quick decision to go buy that weapon, you probably have something in your mind that you want to use it right away, and it's probably not a good reason.
Well, Hailey, you I don't think I mentioned this yet. I mean, you are a piano tutor of students of all ages, and I look forward to talking probably next topic really about the experience of making your own studio. But why I'm talking about that is because you have been the last school year in the schools every day. You were substitute teaching throughout Lane ESD, and so I think that you have that deep understanding that I think you're especially sensitive to the slaughter of children in their own school communities and how unbelievably devastating that is, and how we have to do everything reasonable to stop it. So what do you think of, I guess, when you see those kinds of things happening?
I think that's just my military grade jet being delivered. Sorry.
No, it's cool.
Excellent.
They can probably hardly even hear it, believe it or not, based on just how proximal these mics are.
Good.
We're getting a flyover, and it's not even at the World Games. But
Yeah.
And I think you know what these kids have been dealing with on day to day, the stress, the anxiety already.
Yeah.
On top of that crap.
Well, and it's so hard to show up to school the next day after a shooting just happened, and you have to go over drills, or you have to remind the kids, like, oh, make sure that you're talking to your counselors, your teachers, like, let your designated adult know about these things that are happening. And I mean, even at the schools this year that I was in, there were multiple lockdowns for multiple different reasons, where there's somebody in the area that has a gun, or there's somebody at the school that they think has a gun, and it's terrifying to the kids. There was one point when the fire alarm was pulled and the kids, there was a rumor going around the whole school. They were freaking out. They're like, are we gonna get shot at this fire drill? Like,
yeah,
because it wasn't a scheduled fire drill, so the teachers didn't know.
Oh wow.
And at this point, I wasn't on an email list, so I didn't know, and I didn't even know there was like a rumor going around about somebody having a gun. So this is just a very real thing, and it's so scary that you don't know what you can do to help as a person who is supposed to be protecting all of these children, yet you're scared yourself. And
Right.
you're supposed to be this kind of support for them, but you don't even know for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me, as someone passionate about education, this is ostensibly an education-themed podcast, that teachers' voices are just already systematically and over time just been diminished in our community, in the esteem of our community. And so I wanted to ask you about that, because people aren't listening to teachers. You know, what else do you think you wish people would just kind of understand about that experience of being a teacher? I mean, you have your bachelor in music education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look forward to the day that you get to be a band director at one of our great local high schools. And I think you'll do an amazing job, but you've already been doing some cool stuff. So like, what do you think people don't understand about the task of teaching?
There is a lot to it. I actually found out recently that a lot of people don't know. They think teachers are just paid for a whole year, that they just get paid for a whole summer off and stuff like that. But they actually, for the 8 or 9 months that they're in school, that's their salary for those 8 or 9 months spread over a whole year.
Right.
So it's not that they're getting paid for this summer off. It's that they're actually working their tail off, and they're not getting their total pay during that time. It's
Right.
just getting spread over another point in time.
So you can have some
And they often
semblance
have to go in.
So you can have some ability to subsist in those 3 months without necessarily having to take on a big summer job.
Yeah.
When you're burnt out.
Well, and a lot of people are like, well, if you didn't do it for the money and all this stuff, why are you teaching? Well, these kids are really great and they're worth it. But teachers also should be getting paid more, need to be paid more. That's why we're having a teacher shortage. That's why we have a sub shortage. Like, if it's something that we need, which we do need education for the growing people, they're going to have to invest in that.
Right.
And that's just something that's bad. Like, there's no getting around it.
I mean, another thing I think of is all these young people need proper mental health supports, professional, high quality, you know, accessible support for that. But also the teachers do. Also probably the classified staff do, you know, admins even. I mean, so, but it's a very, I think we need to really look at, I mean, two things we've talked about so far is like, what is the more ideal but also practical future that I want for this country is a really robust mental health accessibility and infrastructure, and also electric vehicles, accessible and affordable, and just a more climate friendly and healthy, socially healthy transportation infrastructure. So I love thinking about things that are possible, but also kind of idealistic and inspire people towards something interesting. I think this culture war that we've been living in is just really hard and really toxic, because something that is great to so many people is just automatically shut down by like the idea that like, okay, when you talk about, you know, the electrification of vehicles, you know, a bunch of people hear, you're going to take away my truck, you know, and it's like, that's not what I said, buddy.
No, we're going to give it to you, but it's going to be electric.
Yeah, and American made, and you know, all that. So,
But it's not going to sound
Oh.
beefy like
Yeah.
that giant big block 454.
right. So I didn't mean to go
cares?
backwards necessarily because I do want to talk, my darling, about your wonderful piano studio.
Yay!
It's so nice, y'all. It's been a huge investment of your hard-earned money and time, and it's finally fully open.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about it.
It opened Monday.
It opened Monday.
Yeah.
Off of basically River Loop 1 off of River Road. What I love about what you did is you took your years of excellent experience and, you know, I saw so many students fight to keep you as their teacher. I saw several anyway, that, you know, are excited to continue with you at this new space because you own it now. This is something where you didn't work in that, you didn't have that relationship with the community that you're working in. You had a strong relationship with your students, but you didn't have that ability to be the decider and the determiner of all of those kinds of things. In many cases, you were probably at the whim of what was going on. And,
Yeah.
And so I'm just so excited for you to launch the B Sharp Studio. And I mean, just like you're in a space that you built. Talk about that.
I know, it's so exciting. We did the whole shebang. Like, we started with the empty building. It was just the bare bones, the frame and the structure and all that stuff. And putting the insulation, the wiring, the soundproofing. Drywall is heavy. So if anybody wants to do drywall, don't. My stepdad basically showed me how to put it up, and then he let me do it on my own. So there were a few pieces of drywall I had to lift up on my own.
Wow.
Does the drywall look perfect? No.
Really? It
No.
looks to me like
Yeah.
Character.
it looks great.
Builds character for
It's
that
character.
building. Yeah.
It's just character.
I don't even think you should make a joke about anything in your studio
Okay,
not looking nice.
here's
Because to
the
me,
thing.
it looks
You can
wonderful.
you can fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
So,
No.
laid the
But
flooring down, did all of that, painted.
I'm just going to pop a picture up now so people can see.
Yeah, here's a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Isn't that nice?
And here's another picture.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Dang it. Now we got to go take these pictures, hon.
And here's one more. Yeah. So that's the 3 pictures.
She's trying to give me a hard time in the editing room, isn't she? She's trying to make me do extra work.
Well, gotta make you earn your keep.
I got to contribute to this studio in some way. What have my contributions been so far? One time I dragged some tree branches to clear space.
It's true. Yes. You got me
I
a
helped
picture.
make the website logo like kind of transparent.
Yeah.
Well,
And then copy editing for the words on the website.
Yeah.
So let me tell you the website. It's right here. Haha. BSharperPianoStudio.com.
That's right.
The letter B.
and I think you just came up with a catchphrase.
Oh.
When you use the word shebang. So when it comes to learning piano, you learn the whole shebang at the B Sharper Studio.
Dun dun dun.
There you go.
Run off with it. Run with it.
Run with it.
Everybody's got a dad.
Free marketing.
Everybody's got that dad who thinks the thing that they're saying is snappy, and it's like
If it
Okay.
wasn't for dad jokes, this world would be just.
What was the dad joke you were telling
Better.
us earlier?
I can't tell it because I can't remember the person I saw it on TikTok.
It was something
I'd have
about
to
a
give the credit.
duck.
Yeah.
No,
It-
just say you saw it on
It
TikTok.
was why do ducks have tail feathers? And it's so they can cover their butt quacks.
my eyes started rolling immediately once I remembered what this joke was. And so since you've had the opportunity to give a few lessons now in your space, you know, tell me about your students and their parents and what they're excited about. I mean, you have like furniture in there with books and even like tactile puzzles, like really, because these are half-hour lessons, so sometimes you're gonna have siblings or parents that stick around. They could sit on the little front porch area, or
Yeah.
they can be inside on the little couch listening. And how have people been receiving it?
Yeah, the family of 3, they took apart most of my puzzles, which was fine. I learned how to put 2 of them back together. There's one that I cannot get back together. It's like this ball that has all these pieces come out. Cannot do it. Don't get it. But that just means for the next lesson they can work on putting that back together.
Yeah.
So that's nice. I do have a cute little refrigerator. And I'm planning on having like fudge pops and ice cream in the freezer. And then I have like yogurt and stuff like that instead of
Juice
candy.
boxes.
I feel like it's just a healthier way. And
Right.
I don't know. I think
Well, I
it's
mean-
just cute too.
I think you have this opportunity to just be like warm, cute, like tailored towards your students in a more one-on-one way where like, okay, what's nice about a candy bowl? you buy the candy once a month, put it in the bowl.
Yeah.
You can't really do that with juice boxes and fudge pops as much. You got to be maintaining your inventory a little more diligently.
Yeah.
And so that just shows the hominess that I see from what you're doing. But also, I know it's passionate of yours to just kind of try to be more accessible and make music accessible to learners of all ages and income groups and stuff. So
well, and I think it's so important, and people realize how universal music is. Literally anybody can learn how to play an instrument. It depends on how much effort you want to put in, but anybody can do it.
right.
And even people who are quote unquote not naturally gifted,
Right.
they can still learn. I had many people in my college career that were like, I was not that gifted person, but here I am. It's like, good for you. You put in enough hard time and effort into what you were doing, and you made it.
Right.
So
I mean, when you say anybody can learn how to play an instrument, there are wonderfully talented deaf musicians, for example.
100%.
You know, people think that would be a complete barrier to participation.
Beethoven does not
Absolutely
count.
not.
He was hearing when he learned how to play instruments.
Right, but there's also a
Doesn't count.
spectrum. You have people who probably are deaf their whole lives, but you also have people that become deaf and they continue and become more, passionate about their music and more in touch with the vibrations they're making. So.
Yeah.
Brian, have you ever been a musical guy? I mean, I think you used to be a vocalist, right?
Used to be a vocalist. I started out as an instrumentalist and switched to vocal. I did some singing. It's something I definitely had a great passion for, but it was good that it didn't work out. It was better for me it didn't. I also have.
You never hear people say that. That's I like that. It's like it's good that I didn't succeed in that.
I have lots of ego problems, and I could
So does
honestly
somebody
say that.
Yeah, who are you pointing to?
that had I succeeded down any of those avenues, it would have just made me into an ugly human being, and I'm glad that it didn't work out. I'm one of those that I'm glad my childhood dreams didn't work out. I'm quite content now with who I am and what I do.
We've talked about young people, and I love them. I think they're amazing. But there's so much wisdom in what you just shared. And I think we forget Gen X and the wisdom, and we forget the wisdom that does come from boomers. And we've already spent some time saying our piece about old people on
Okay,
this.
boomer.
But I just can't imagine hearing that out of the mouth of somebody who's my age or younger to say, man, it's a really good thing that I tried really hard in that, had a good time, but it wasn't the thing that got me really to where I am. It was
Well, and
just
I think
a piece of it.
it's a reminder that you don't have to stay in one lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to. There's many different lanes, and there's many different exits that lead to other lanes. Like,
Exactly.
it doesn't have to be one thing. I always wanted to be band director in the classroom. Never wanted anything else, and now I just opened up my own studio, which is
Right.
very individual, and I get to spend my own time doing that. So there's so many different things, and that's even in my little short span that I've been in classrooms. Like, that's not even a full lifetime yet. So
And she's not going to say it, but incredibly, incredibly talented. Musically, this child has left me in the smoke, and she is incredibly talented at what she does. I would like to second, if you have a young person that is interested in piano, or let's say you're an old person interested in piano, you can see that she has the perfect personality to deal with old people as well. Look her up, because she will definitely teach piano of anyone of all ages, and she's quite talented with other instruments as well, but I'm not sure if you're pursuing teaching
it's mostly
with any
piano
of those.
right now, but maybe at some point doors will open, and maybe flute and oboe will get in there. But for now,
B
just
sharp
piano.
sousaphone studio.
That's the one instrument through my whole career I could not play, is the tuba.
Really?
Euphonium, I have it down, which is a baby tuba. Can't play the tuba.
I always think of the tuba player as like a 260 plus pound curly haired white guy who's at least 6'1".
That's why I love when we break those.
Yes.
And
yes.
there's this petite little girl that plays the tuba.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. wearing a Billie Eilish t-shirt.
That's right.
I just wish there would be some high school or college marching band out there that will make my day by having one tuba player running around. And I don't care if they even have it rigged up to an air tank, but full of soapy water. So as they're doing their whole routine, bubbles are flying out of that sousaphone. That would just make my day.
That sounds funny.
We used to in college. It's so dumb. One of the trombone players would empty some of his water bottle in his trombone, and he'd play the song like with the water in the trombone, and it would gurgle, 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 and then he would play it really loud, and it was like it would just spray water right up the end of the trombone. It was so dumb. It was great.
Trombone's so great. I've just always wanted to be able to make the sound on it that you need.
You just wanted the brrrr. Right. That's all that you wanted. That's all that you wanted. That's all anybody wants.
Anything fretless, or like unlike a piano, you can't bend the notes on a grand piano. Can you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of prepared piano?
Oh gosh.
They like do stuff with the strings. They put stuff on the strings. So like technically, just like a guitar, instead of moving a string down, you would just push on the string inside of a piano.
Got it.
Yeah.
We saw somebody playing a koto, which is a Japanese
Mm-hmm.
it's like horizontal, maybe like 8-foot long instrument where all
So
like
cool.
the bridges on each strings are kind of in a diagonal row in the middle, and so you're plucking on the right side, but if you're pushing the string on the left side of where that little bridge is, you're bending the note in real time as it's resonating.
We
And
saw that at the country fair, actually.
yeah,
Your favorite place.
It's not that bad.
yeah, we have a lot of great things we can talk about, honestly, but this setting that we're in is your backyard. Thank you, Brian, for letting us do that, and you live here in Veneta, and so how long have you lived here, and what's it been like, the ups and downs of OCF, Oregon Country Fair?
Oh, we've been here 15, 16 years.
Nice.
Oregon Country Fair, it's had its ups and downs. I would say that it's gotten better.
Okay.
I work with a lot of people that also work at the fair, and one thing they never realized is what life is like around the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
We get the riffraff. We get the people that can't get in the fair.
Right.
The people that...
Wow, that's the barrier to entry to the fair is not high. The people that can't make it into that.
I would think they probably are pretty good at not letting people in that are impaired.
Okay.
Chemically impaired.
Right.
Well, those people end up on the barrier.
To an extent that would be like dangerous or
Yes, exactly.
so dissociated that they're really not acting consciously
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
People are going in there stoned and probably after a few drinks maybe, but
definitely not to where they would be a danger to others or to themselves. But we see a lot of people that they're not necessarily following the fair for or the carnival lifestyle for the fun, but they're more following it around to see what they can, I guess, get into around that area while people are gone. A lot of people leave, I think, during the fair because they don't want to be around all the noise. We have a couple campgrounds around us, and live bands go till sometimes 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
right. You probably have some like renegade performances and stages that are not.
There's definitely
yeah.
not regulated stuff.
Well, it's ironic that Quiet Camp is one of those, and it's not very quiet.
They did. Quiet Camp was amazing this year.
Excellent.
They were pretty much done around 10 to 10:30 every
That's
night.
great.
Wow.
We see people that don't have boundaries. They don't necessarily care that something belongs to someone else. So you're running people off once in a while. You're having to call the sheriff or call the fair and say, "Hey, we've got somebody here that we need some intervention." But for the most part, that's very rare.
Good.
It hasn't been too bad. We just make sure we stay around that whole weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
But most
opposite
of the fair
approach.
people are wonderful.
Yeah.
The fair's just not really for me. We
We get free tickets, but we don't go.
yeah. I'm just not up to it.
Yeah.
I think of it as a very large Saturday market
Right.
with more vendors. Like,
And I don't think I've ever gotten you interested in coming to the Saturday market with me.
I've been to the Saturday market.
I know, but you haven't been like,
Like
"Woo,
3 times.
let's go."
I've heard that's a great place to buy food.
Yeah, there's some really great places to buy.
It is. It is. I mean, really delicious food, but and I appreciate as somebody who receives food stamp benefits until I start making so much money that I can't. But
With your 2 jobs.
yeah, and so like I can go, and not only do they have the ability to like put forward your EBT card and get tokens from it that you can spend on the produce and stuff and like fish and everything, but they will double your funds up to $10. So if you want to pull out $20, they'll give you an extra 10, so you have 30. You want to pull out 10, you'll give you an extra 10, so you have 20. That
I
extra
appreciate
10,
that it's more accessible and it gives more money to the vendors.
and it's actually specifically those 10 have to be used on produce, so not fish, not milk, but it's nice. It's nice. That really makes the difference for me to be able to kind of not feel like I'm shooting my own self in the foot by buying organic carrots and cabbage, and it's delicious, man. The difference is so stark between almost every grocery store and the quality you get versus local organic and in our backyard. Another thing, I saw people, because they've built this little market pavilion in downtown Eugene for the farmers market on Tuesdays and the farmers market that happens at the Saturday market. So some people, because you get the angry comments on Facebook, the people that that are basically saying, "Oh my gosh, these out of towners are coming in to profit off of Eugene," and it's like, I think you're really misunderstanding the urban to rural connection. I mean, we've talked about social cohesion and urban rural not really understanding each other, but actually having like these rural farmers come to the city downtown, experience something positive there, and we get something positive from them without having to go out ourselves.
That's like the point.
Yeah. Lane County Farmers Market. So.
Yeah, what do they think all that money they're paying at Fred Meyer stays in Eugene?
Right.
Doesn't that go to corporate Kroger?
Kroger. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Which is literally everywhere.
You're right. I also think there's some extent to which anybody who ain't doing shit just feels salty about people who are doing something cool. Like that.
Yeah.
That's something that we just whatever feeling existed before the internet there in humans, the internet just like blew that up.
Yeah.
In terms of so many things, you're gonna get a hater at some point on your business for no reason. I don't know.
I see that in restaurants.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like,
oh yeah.
oh my gosh, if somebody shows up in a bad mood and they just poop all over you. Like,
we haven't even thought about getting into like restaurant stories, but like, okay, here's one that wasn't very fun for you when you were working at a local like kind of corporate chain family diner sort of restaurant, right? And some college age kid comes in with a blow up doll, and he's been dared.
It was it was to get into a fraternity. I don't remember what it's called.
Okay.
But he had to go on a date with a blow up doll to get into the fraternity, and they like called ahead to see, which was nice enough, I guess, to see what time was going to be the least busy time so that they could come in. And they had like a party of 20 that came in with this one guy, and they sat at a table next to him while he's on this date, and he's like talking to this blow up doll. He ordered her like a salad and all of this stuff, and he ate food, was having a conversation, all of this stuff, and it's so uncomfortable to like as a server trying to just make money and like have a job.
I'm dying to know, was it named after a car or a state?
I didn't ask her name. I did not ask her name. But the worst part is that like really made me feel weird is that I was really uncomfortable, and all of my coworkers seemed to think it was really funny. So it just made me feel in this really weird spot where I'm like, am I just overreacting? Is it supposed to be a joke that I'm supposed to be laughing at? Because I don't really find it funny. And I don't know if that makes me strange, but
no, I mean they call it hazing.
That's what the word
and
is.
You know,
Thank you.
when I was a kid, hazing seemed funny, but when you really
involve
stand
other
back
people
and you look at it, it's nothing more than organized bullying.
Yeah.
And it's coming up with a way that's socially acceptable to bully somebody and make fun of them for a night, and it's nothing more than that, and it's rude.
Which is rude.
It's Yeah, it's unfortunate that it still continues in this day of age.
Yeah,
but,
even with something minimal, if you will, like
Yeah.
that, it's very
Right.
surface level, but
Not
it
even
involves
not
other
even butt
people.
chugging, which is like, you
Oh
know,
my gosh.
definitely part of it. I think Dartmouth College, like 8 or 9 years ago, had some serious medical, maybe even a death, but like from butt chugging.
I
Yeah.
don't know what that is. I don't think I want
So
to know what
alcohol
that is.
hits your bloodstream much quicker if it's anally.
it just
if
gets
it's a
absorbed through those
suppository.
membranes a little faster.
Yes. So you feel more drunk more quick if you
Do
Alcohol
they just stick,
poisoning
like,
a beer
happens
through
a lot
your
do they just
faster.
put like a bottle in your booty? Like,
Yeah. Would you say, do they just do that? Like, you're making it sound like it's not a big deal. Like, you could do that on an average Thursday.
You don't?
I mean, hey, people are free to do whatever they like. It's not a practice I partake in, but
Right.
people
Maybe
are
you
free to.
should. Yeah.
I'm not into it. I gave up alcohol back almost 5 years ago now.
I know, it's been almost
Yeah,
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
That's very awesome. But I wanted to talk to you, Brian, also just about the experience of being a dad. You know, I hope to be a parent, you know, eventually. And Haley's like, yeah, huh? No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, you've got two pretty amazing young adults that are out there really forging their path, beyond what you've been able to set up for them. Hailey being this, entrepreneur, and this person who's in an amazing relationship, and this
You said that
and
like
then
a
your
joke.
your son Bryce having a very promising engineering future. Really,
He won cornhole on Friday too.
yeah, with
And-
all his coworkers in the engineering.
His coworkers.
And that he'll probably take more pride in than his
He
engineering
called
degree.
me while I was at work and goes, "I have the best news ever. I won cornhole." And
Well,
he's like,
priorities.
I'm
I
like,
mean,
okay, great.
And for anybody who knows him, man, he's not the kind of guy to get super excited about most things. So
Yeah.
it is really
No, yeah.
especially fun to hear.
It was
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow. First off, it took 3 people to make the wonderful children that are Hailey and
Well,
Bryce.
technically two. But
3 because I
Holy
believe
Spirit.
we're also made up by our environment, and in the case of Hailey and Bryce, I was not the best of fathers, and I was absent in many ways. And they have a stepdad and also a wonderful mother. There's also a stepmother involved. So really 4 people
Yeah.
that have had great influence on them. My influence was relatively small, and but I worry more about having a negative influence on their lives. I mentioned I gave up alcohol 5 years ago. Alcoholism is definitely something that can run in the family. And I appreciate so greatly both the children I have and their approach to alcohol. And so that's one legacy I don't really worry about passing along. Also, being abusive. Again, another legacy that I don't worry that is going to get passed along. My children have done a wonderful job learning from my mistakes. I think me being out of the home probably made that easier for them. Had I been home and had they been involved directly, they may not have been able to learn as much from those mistakes, and the experience probably would have been much more traumatic on them.
Yeah. It takes
I
takes a lot of moral fiber to say everything you just said. I mean, you've probably had enough time to kind of deeply process and understand that. So for example, for me, things that I've participated in or done that I think are just terrible now, I can talk about them somewhat matter-of-factly because you can't change the past. You can literally only move forward, and you really, it's not worth beating around the bush sometimes. So I admire what you said.
You are who you are.
Yeah.
And like you said, the only reason to beat around the bush is to continue to try to hide from it. And
Right.
once you just reach a point where you can either exhaust yourself by continue running, or you just stop and say, bring it. I'm done running from you anymore. And I think once I was able to do that is when a connection was able to happen again with the kids, a different kind of connection than what we had, where just being the parent and the children every once in a while, but a connection of I respect you as a full adult, a full individual, and I love you and everything about you, and I can look at my son and say the same thing. I see them as equals. I see my children as unexperienced in many ways.
Sure.
And that's hard as a parent
that's
because
also
you
part
know
of
they're going to stumble,
being a kid.
and you don't want to see them stumble, but yet you need to stay out of the way because they're never going to grow as individuals and reach their full potential if you are constantly, slowing them up by being in the way. And so I kind of like now that my role is more of a I get to sit back and I get to watch and I get to run behind and be prepared in case I'm needed.
Right.
But I get to watch these children blossom constantly, daily, in everything they touch and everything they do, and I couldn't be more proud.
Well, and I feel like being more adult, we get to have more serious and, if you will, fun conversations. Like
Right,
we can get deeper into more things that you don't necessarily want to talk about when you're younger, or that you're not ready to understand. And it goes both ways, like with you and with my mom. Like there's conversations that we wouldn't have when we were younger, and now we can have them, and it's with a person who is at the same intellectual, not, you're a little bit higher than me in intellect, but at a relatively similar intellectual level.
Right.
So
No,
Honestly,
they have a phenomenal mom, and I'm glad you brought your mom up because
She's pretty great.
shout out Holly.
Holly
And
is
Carrie.
absolutely phenomenal, and just like the rest of us, she has her flaws.
Yeah.
But as far as being a supportive parent, you couldn't ask for any better.
You literally can't. She's the best.
I love that feeling. I love knowing that. And I think that so I love Hailey. I am in love with Hailey, and I fell in love with Hailey because of who she is, and that will always be why I love her. But I'll tell you this much, learning more about and getting to know the family around you is something where, what are the psychological motives that really lead people into love or into these deep connections? Probably part of it is some of the stuff that I didn't get within my own family. I get to see happening now with y'all. Like, so for example, if my sister, who I could not be more appreciative of and could not love more, even though, like, boy, do we have disagreements about how to respond to certain things or how best to be a family member when your other family member is just off the rails or something like that, right? So my sister and I have had moments like that in the last few years, right? We're not very communicative right now at all. But and where it gets to is that, my father also dealt with, serious, like, patterns of abuse that he perpetuated, and anger and just dissociation and not pulling his weight and just things like that, right? I really wanted Lisa, my wonderful sister, to okay, so she experienced abuse just like I experienced abuse. Maybe for her it was different and more intense in some ways. When my father passed away in 2021, he was 69 years old, not very old. She never got the chance to reconcile with him, and I don't know that she ever would have wanted to. But I always just kind of hoped, because I could see my dad's growth. I could see that cognitively, like, he had issues, but I could also see that he wanted to atone for his past. He wanted to reach that point where, he could bring everyone in for a hug again and say, look, what I did was terrible and I'm so sorry and da-da-da-da, but we're still a family. It never reached that spot before he passed away. That's sad and hard. That's sad and hard. And for me to see a different story with y'all, I think is, like, kind of wonderful, and I'm glad to be a part of it in some way. just to experience it even in some way.
You know,
He acts like he was the worst dad ever. He wasn't.
Yeah.
By the way, not the worst.
Well,
you know, don't
need to measure who's a good dad by like the worst, because there's a lot of bad ones.
That's what I'm saying
I
is
know.
you weren't. an
don't
awful dad.
underestimate how difficult it is to deal with not.
Monster. By the way. Just kidding.
Oh my!
Hello. Just,
Not
he
being
wasn't a
able
bad. What kind of a dad was he? Well,
No.
monster.
Just a monster.
We have an
now,
ad
if we want to
break.
break this down and look at it, we can see that. No, come on now. Let's
We do
not
need
go
a
off
real
the
ad
rails.
break here. Guys, having trouble keeping it up in the bedroom? Blue Chew. Okay, comes in a discreet package.
This is not a real thing.
It actually
There's no
is a real
sponsor.
thing, and
Yeah.
I'd like to talk for a few minutes about
It might not have changed your
erectile
life, Hailey, but
dysfunction.
only because someone didn't need it. But
No,
Maybe
I was
don't
gonna-
give it to those old people. If they can't keep it up, they shouldn't be doing it. Like,
what? In the...
just saying, these people making these rules shouldn't be.
So now now we're talking about we're really broaching the subject of artificial means. Does that mean if they need to be put on a dialysis machine?
Hey.
Oh, okay.
We don't have to get into that. I was just talking in this one situation. We're not branching.
So what do you think about the fact that Texas only allows women to have 6 electronic toys? They can't have more than that.
I didn't know that was a
Didn't
thing.
know that. State laws are.
I didn't know that was a thing. I think there's some states where, like, I don't know if this is true at all. Please don't quote me. That like peanut butter can't be on top of the sandwich or something like that. Like, there's such weird laws.
Well, state laws, right, and federal laws, but state laws. You think about why they're so weird, why they're so quirky, why they don't make any sense, why they've aged poorly, and then you start to meet, like, if you've ever met and talked to state legislators, you're like, oh, that's why. Well, even
they
the
would
great
do
ones,
that.
even the wonderful ones, what are they focused on? They're not the
Not the
not
important
combing
things.
through and making sure everything's up to date and better. It's usually about getting reelected, and it's usually
Yeah.
about, well, what's my okay. So we talked about Roe v. Wade, but here's something that the Democratic Party and I would say Nancy Pelosi and certain leaders of the party have failed to do for abortion rights is codify it in law, and instead, I mean, you would think about why that is. You could say, oh, it's politically difficult. It's not that easy. You could also say, we fundraise well off that issue. we fire up our base by talking about the danger that is there. So if you fix the danger that is there, we lose that political card. I'm not saying that I know with certainty that that's the philosophy, but I think that's definitely comes up. So, anyway.
I think you might be onto something there. There might be some benefit to keeping that rage in place through the election process of 2022 and possibly into 2024.
Right. Anyway, that was a little aside, but can we talk, Hailey, about so we are oh crap, we're about an hour in. But,
Wow.
So for anybody who's really enjoying this so far, like I just want to ask you, like, you've got this great stuff going on, we've talked about it. When it comes down to like picking a partner, I don't know why you fucked up so hard. What do you see in this person? I keep hearing
There's a lot of psychologists that say you date your parents.
that's a weird thing to say, honey.
Which is kind of funny. I don't know how.
I've heard every man grows up to marry his mother. I've heard that. I mean, okay.
But you've told me I'm like your dad in a few ways, which is kind of funny.
Nice.
It tends to be. I don't know.
I'm lost so far.
Well,
I'm
I
just like, wow. Wait, you're supposed to marry your mother, but you're
no,
like
no.
his dad.
I think
so...
it's just in general. There's something psychological about it that I think you're with your parents mostly for 18 years of your life, right? You're living with them. Obviously, some kids leave sooner, or some people don't have parents and they have their guardians who they would then
Or some people
rely
live
on.
with their parents into their late 20s and 30s.
Yeah. But So you think about it, that you've been with your parents or guardians for this long. Why would you not gravitate towards somebody who you've been living with and you've been getting along with? Not all the time, but I mean, like, you're able to live with.
I've
I
got
like
a
that
few
direction
words
of it.
for you. It's because as parents, we hear you nonstop through your teenage years saying, I can't stand you. I hate you guys. I can't stand you. I wish you weren't my parents. And then you go and find someone that's like your
I know,
parents
isn't
to
that funny?
marry?
Isn't that funny?
Well, I like you going in that direction with it. Don't worry about it. But what direction I go to with my head, because this is kind of macro scale thinking I'm drawn towards, is like, you think that your partner is like your parents, but I actually think that all people are like each other, and then you notice those things that are like you're rolling your eyes.
Giant human.
Exactly. We are all manifestations and temporary vessels that are all actually just the same expression of humanity. And we make radically
That's
different.
why we all have the same thing, where we go up to the microwave and we open it the last second, even though nobody told us that's what we need to be doing. Like, the microwave's not going to blow up. We don't need to do that when it hits 0, yet we all open it at 1.
What a funny specific. So she's been waiting to talk about
Wow.
this.
Apparently, that's really a thing.
That's the thing that we've all.
Have you done that?
This is her ace in the hole, Brian. This is haha. But I know you've done it.
There is something satisfying about stopping it right before it gets to 0.
Or
yeah.
trying to balance the light switch so it's
think-
not going off or it's not going on.
I
Like,
think
it's
what
right in
you're
the middle.
talking about is just cool stuff to do. I think more what he's thinking of is more like, after 18 years walking into the store following your dad, you find somebody that walks about the same speed as you do so that you don't have to
I don't know, his legs
race
are
to
longer
catch
than
up or
mine.
anything. You just, you tend to find somebody that allows you to be lazy.
My legs are longer so I can walk slower and keep the same speed
I don't
as
think
other
that's
people.
the case.
You know what's funny about this? And this is just so iterative, if that's even the right word, of our dynamic here. I asked you for reasons why you love me. Instead, you presented amazing reasons why I love you. This is great. Like the light switch thing and the microwave thing. This is what?
Complete
Are you
deflection.
saying that I don't love you?
No, I'm just saying that that people are definitely getting the sense, and I wanted them to, of like, okay, this person that I've been together with for a while, like, this is why she's so radiant and fun, and I think
Because
that,
you don't think about yourself.
Oh yeah,
You're always thinking about the other people
try
around
to.
you.
I'm always pushing her to recognize her own talents and competencies, and I don't know that it. Well, I know that it helps because I know that people have the ability to speak positivity to other people, but I don't know that it really is helping each time I do it. I think it can be annoying. I think it can be, too cutesy and folksy sometimes. But I mean, I would not have spent more than a day, more than a week, in a committed relationship with somebody like who wasn't as wonderful as you in all these ways. So
Thank you.
yes. So now say something nice about me, please.
You really okay? The
But
thing
really,
that
just
no,
where's
no.
the compatibility here?
Honestly,
Wow, she's still.
I was
she's
joking.
still
I was
stalling.
joking.
She's stalling.
The thing that I told my mom, and I think I told you this maybe, is that you have such a personable personality.
I
like,
do love talking to people. And
The
chatting.
thing is I don't necessarily like talking a lot, so it's nice to have somebody to do it for me. So now
We're
you're
both
doing my dirty
skeptical.
work.
We're both skeptical that you don't like talking a lot.
Okay,
you don't
I'm
like
a
talking
loud
to strangers
talker.
in the
I'm a
grocery
loud
store.
talker. That doesn't mean I like talking all the time.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't know. I've always
They still don't agree.
Nobody should be fooled
Okay.
by you one
Just
moment.
because when
mean,
I was little, I was talking to strangers in a grocery store
Aw.
does not mean that that's what I do now.
Strangers in the grocery store, people along the street, anywhere, anytime, you felt it was time to share whatever knowledge you presently had.
I'm still an oversharer.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is still true.
Yes.
It still remains true.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brian, we haven't had any time to talk yet about what the hell is a raptor and why is a center needed for the raptor? I think velociraptor.
Velociraptor, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And, you'd have to say Velociraptor, yeah, pretty raptor-like, although they don't fit the definition because a Velociraptor, they may use their feet to kind of subdue and kill their prey, but they're not going to carry it off. And so that's the distinct
So start with what a raptor is.
So a raptor is nothing more than a bird that carries its prey away in its feet.
Got it.
So they don't always kill it with their feet, but they do carry it with their feet. And it's not always large birds. We think raptor, we think bald eagles, golden eagles, these big, massive birds. But raptors can range anything from something like 1.2 ounces all the way up to 12, 13 pounds. And there's also songbirds that fit the raptor definition, if you will. We call them raptorial songbirds. Things like shrikes and other birds like that will catch their prey. But that's
What's your
basically
favorite raptor?
osprey.
Is it still the red shoulder? Oh.
No, red shoulders are one of my favorite types just because they're not very big, but tough.
Nice.
They'll drive anything off. But osprey are definitely my favorite type of raptor.
They're so cool. Aren't they like those owls that can move their toes or
Zygodactylic.
Yeah.
Yes, they can rotate that outer toe. There's
So
Good
instead
luck
of-
auto
instead
casting.
of
several types
three
who
in
do
one.
that.
Zygodactylic.
Zygodactylic. And, in an osprey, even an owl, when you think about being able to rotate that outer toe, that allows them to distribute their force while grabbing a prey more evenly. In the case of an osprey, if they're going to fly away with a fish, being able to rotate that toe allows them to have 4 toes on each side of that fish instead of 6 on one and 2 on the other, so they can hold on to it better.
Wouldn't it technically be 4 and 4?
What did I say?
6 and
6 and 2 would be
6
if
and
they
2
couldn't
without
rotate.
the rotating.
I
Yeah,
didn't say
without
would do that.
rotating, it's 6 and 2.
Couldn't you?
And 4 and
go
4
like
with
this, though?
rotating.
She's like, I'm a raptor. Look at me. Cascade Raptor Center is somewhere that I went to as a youth in the K through 12 4J school system on field trips once in a while, and it's the kind of thing where you remember more how it made you feel than you remember specific memories. Definitely, children, were really excited to see the birds up close. Because they are scary, I guess. Like they are dangerous. They are vicious in some ways, and so when you see kind
It's
of
the adrenaline rush.
yeah,
I'm next to a scary bird.
yes, but it's being calm, loving, or tamed. Just
Isn't that
I
what
don't know.
humans strive for? Is like taming something?
Like
Interesting.
Like that's what we did to dogs. That's what we did to cats.
Yeah.
right.
So domestication
is
is what
that-
you're thinking of.
Yeah. So is that what children think of as birds? They just
I don't
think
know.
because I was a child that I love animals still to this day, and I would love to make any animal my pet because I'm weird and I would just love to have a pet
Yeah.
fennec fox. Like that's just what I want. So is that like where you're going with kids? Is that they just maybe they're thinking of it as like, oh, I could have this as a pet, and like they're imagining it because that's what I would
Could
do.
be.
So
I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't have been as specific. I was just trying to open up the conversation about this place you've been working for over a decade. Or
Yeah, I've been there now 15 years.
wow.
I actually retired from plumbing full time 5 or 6 years ago to do this full time.
Cool.
Why have a center? Education. Education is the main reason. One thing about raptors, they are the top of the food chain, so they're what we call an indicator species. If we are paying attention to our environment and we notice indicator species, something happening, let's say it's a explosion of numbers, we know, well, prey numbers must be really high. So all these birds are successfully fledging a lot of their young. If we see the numbers decreasing greatly, we know something has gone wrong in the food chain where their prey is not available. Why is their prey not available? Maybe we had a chemical spill. Maybe it's fertilizer. Maybe it's who knows what. But at least then we know to start looking into it and to try to find the problem. Plus, education of just knowing what is out in the environment is going to be what makes that young person care about their environment. The more you know, the more you care. So I think having a center is critical, that we have that education. We also fulfill another niche in the community, and that's that we do wildlife rehab.
Nice.
And most of the animals we see are all indirectly, their injuries are caused indirectly by humans, whether it's getting caught in a fence, whether it's being hit by a car. So we try to do what we can to get them patched back up and released back out into the wild.
Awesome. I can't help but want to go straight to like a heart-rending experience that you've had. Like whether it was a bird that you just loved it and you had to put it down, or a bird where, or I don't know if you even do that, but can you tell me any in a quick story about something that was just like, man, this is a hard thing to do today, but I have to do it.
Yeah, wildlife rehab it's not all glory. You have to consider by the time an animal gets to the point and we're talking a wild animal, by the time it gets to a point somebody can walk up and pick that animal up, it's on death's doorstep. So when it comes in, that animal's already dead. In your mind, it was going to die out there. So you're doing what you can to give it a second chance. Unfortunately, you can't save them all. And death, if you get an animal in, let's say the wing has been amputated from the body and by the grill of a truck, there's nothing you could do for that animal. Euthanasia is the most humane treatment. So that is definitely part of the job. It's a difficult part of the job, but there's a reason for it. And knowing that reason, I don't know that it makes it easier, but it makes it to where your ability, you're able to do what's needed, even though it goes against your training. Your training is to keep everything alive, but you understand the reason behind it. Probably the most difficult thing at the center was the loss of our red-shouldered hawk. I was one of her handlers. She was very particular about her handlers. She had a couple other people she would work with, though I would say she made them pay.
She would end up not letting them
quite
be
often
her handlers.
Often they would bleed after working with her. But we had a special relationship. She accepted me, and when we lost her to age-related things, that was very, very difficult. And that made me stop and reflect. I love working with these animals, but, am I doing the right thing? And, after a few hours of struggling with it, it was very easy to see that, yes, I am. And it's worth going through that pain and that loss to continue to do what I'm doing. I feel I have one of the best jobs on the planet. I may not make a lot of money, but that's not what life's about. To me, that's not what life's about. And I'm very happy doing what I do.
Well, and also Key was known as an imprint, right? Key was an imprint.
Yeah.
So
made her more dangerous to work with for everyone.
What's an imprint?
She thought she was a person, basically, or that we were a red-shouldered hawk. And so we were not a provider of food. If she was getting food from a human, she was stealing it from humans. She treated humans the way a red-shouldered should treat another red-shouldered. That means you're going to compete with them for territory, food. You're going to breed with them. She would do breeding behavior and courtship behavior on the glove. 1 year she laid eggs. The only year she laid eggs, she laid 3 of them, and I was allowed to go in and I was allowed to rotate the eggs. They weren't fertile because she lived it alone.
Right.
But just when we needed her to get on a scale and things like that, she would insist. You know, I
Well, it makes you feel
too.
special. It makes you feel
It did.
like she chose you.
She chose me,
Aw.
and that was a nice thing.
When you talk about being an imprint, so I don't know much about this situation or this terminology, but you know, I'm always thinking about neurodiversity in humans. I'm thinking about autism. I'm thinking about anxiety, PTSD, depression, or even, you know, a whole host of phobias, things like that. I then am curious to know, is that kind of a similar thing where some red-shouldered hawks like have that imprint sort of thing, or they all do?
No,
No.
this is something that happened because during a certain part of her life, she was being raised by humans.
Okay.
And
happens with ducks, too.
sometime we'll sit and talk about it because we literally could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
And,
how
it's a
ducklings
fascinating
like
subject.
they will follow a human thinking it's their mom, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's not their mom. It's the same type of thing. Except
Yeah, a lot more complicated.
yeah, except
But,
they don't
yeah.
keep it going their whole life or do they?
Like ducks and geese.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
they're you don't see that. You don't see the same kind of imprinting with precocial species
Yeah.
as you see with altricial species, which all your raptors are altricial and completely dependent on parents as hatchlings. For those out there, to save you the trouble of googling that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome.
it's like I said, we could literally talk for hours on it.
Awesome. When it comes to like the content that you created on TikTok and stuff, and a little bit of dialogue that you put out, has I think, isn't it? What is the @ for your TikTok? Is it OB? No.
Arwen.
sorry.
So
Oh right.
it,
Could you name some certain social media profiles and blogs after?
And we'll
ferrets,
post it
like
right here.
So
Arwen and
my
OB?
Arwen Tonks Shug is my TikTok name, and the whole goal with my TikTok was to get people to my blog, which is the Mischievous Mustelids Present TonksTalk.com. But yeah, Arwen Tonks Shug
Right
is my TikTok name.
Cool. Do you have dialogue that's just about sort of societal issues and tensions and dialogue, or do you talk about animal stuff on there? Or?
I definitely cover the animal stuff, and that's what I want to do more of. Although, since discovering TikTok,
Yeah.
it is kind of fun. It's fun to share some of your ideas about what's going on and hearing some of other people's ideas of what's going on. I've
It's funny.
discovered TikTok Live. I hope someday that I can participate on some lives.
That 1,000 followers.
Yeah,
and then-
but what an amazing platform. I could see, how it could be a problem, but the amount of dialogue that seems to be created on there is just out of this world. And I think, and I've fallen victim. I have started doing videos about current social content. How can I not?
Right.
Well, it's funny
Well-
you mentioned how much you like it because one of Thomas's previous people he's had on the podcast is Sam. And
Yes.
Sam does not like TikTok.
Yeah. My
If I
last
remember
guest
correctly.
basically just had his. I'll re-articulate what it was. As his critique was like, people will, instead of just like sharing something that they liked, which I think actually now they've got the repost function, which is now what he would probably prefer to see. Instead, it's like people will just have their face next to a video and say, just stare at the camera and say, you're looking at me, looking at you, watching this video, and really I'm just deadpan looking at it, and I might just do like a
The duets.
at the end.
duets.
Yeah,
Right.
That's,
and he
the-
basically said, why are you in this? Just share the thing that you liked. So
I'm guilty of wanting to do that with some things.
Yeah.
But those are the reaction videos. Those are the ones where people are watching a video for the first time, and the reason they have the cameras on them is so you can see their reactions. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is that initial, 3, 4, 100 thousandths of a second of their reaction tells an awful lot about who they are. And so I find those videos actually, fascinating to watch, because I like seeing how people react to some of the things they're hearing and
analyze.
seeing.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I love Sam. I think a very small part of it is motivated by his over 100 albums he's worked on and tried to push his music career. So when somebody gets 7 million followers and each of their videos gets 4 million views based on a deadpan, just like
Staring.
gross, just like some food review or something like, something like that. I think there's something to him where it's like, guys, some real effort art here. Like I'm making it. Come look at it, which I recommend checking out his stuff. But
when you are duetting, you are getting the original person's name out too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
to be
yeah, it
fair,
can very much be a way to promote content and stuff. So
I mean, I don't know what I think about people viewing the videos. I think it's cool that some of the videos where I'm talking, just sharing some of my content, it's cool that other people are watching them, and cool if they reply. But the ones that I really get a kick out of are the animal videos. The fact that I can take my cat for a walk and she can be viewed 800 times just blows my mind, and I think that is just so awesome.
This is an actual cat.
Because that's just a couple minutes of my evening of what I get to enjoy, and the fact that somebody else is enjoying a few minutes of my evening with that amazing animal, I think is pretty cool. So that just knocks me out.
cool,
well,
man.
you've been getting a lot of views.
A lot of views with her. She's getting a ton of views.
Right.
She's a cute
And I would
cat
say,
too.
like, just so people don't think he's got like 10,000 subscribers, a lot of views is relative.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Like, it's great to get excited about a couple hundred views.
It's amazing.
It's 100 views, 300 views that wasn't there before.
Right.
I got 200 views on a snail video.
Nice.
I mean, that just tells me there's a lot of people that just like seeing some of the stuff they don't get to see while they're sitting at their desk.
Cool.
There's a 30 seconds of their day they get to watch a snail move a whole centimeter with some goofball making some commentary.
Right.
It just,
I'm sorry,
it's a
man.
break
They had it
of the
on
monotony.
mute. They had it on mute.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
So let me have you, before we wrap up with our final question. Just, I didn't grow up loving animals. Really, I was ambivalent to them a lot more than I was negatively, postured towards them. But Hailey, you've really kind of been a person who has gotten me to love dogs. Rest in peace to Max, the terrier, because that dog,
The
you
best
guys,
dog ever.
He was a good boy.
yes, I was around for his final weeks and months, of him not being in good enough health for it to justify him continuing to be alive, and that was sad to see. But I could tell he was a sweetie. I could tell he loved y'all. I didn't see him interact with you, Brian, but I could tell he loved the family, and
He loved you.
He was sweet.
Yeah.
Max was sweet.
yeah.
But Bella's the best dog ever.
Bella
She's
is
the sweetest little girl.
big old white pit bull with some black.
Here's a picture of her.
patterns. Hailey, why are you doing this? I got a note down immediately after. I'm just going to start writing the notes now of what we need to be able to superimpose in. 3 studio pictures, a couple website links, a TikTok username, and another picture of your dog.
That's right.
But
And here's a picture of Max.
Well, I can throw something else in there.
Stop conjuring images.
We want to make sure, since we did talk about the Raptor
Oh, here's
Center,
a
I need
picture.
to throw that out.
A picture of Key.
No.
Oh.
Just throw that out there that people can always go to cascadesraptorcenter.org. Find out our hours. We're open Tuesday through Sunday from 10 until 5. Mm-hmm. And one thing I wanted to point out is if, regardless what state you're from, we participate in the Museums for All program. So if you are on any kind of state benefits, bring your benefit card, and that gets a family of 4 in for free.
Cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for noting that. But I also think this is probably a given. That I don't think, obviously the Raptor Center didn't ask you to come onto this podcast.
No,
you're
not
not
at all.
speaking on behalf of that at all.
Not
This
at all.
is a personal conversation where we're exploring things in your lives. So let's talk about just like cool shit about animals. What can you tell me as somebody who was relatively ignorant of them? Because I loved humans, I love verbal conversations with people, and that was my priority. But now I come to realize we learn a lot about humans from understanding animals because of how much we share with them, biologically, evolutionarily. Tell me some cool stuff. Any animals? Go.
Haley's afraid of frogs.
I'm not
Tree
afraid
frogs
of
in
frogs.
particular.
I'm afraid of spiders.
Tree frogs.
Oh,
I am not
once
afraid of tree
she
frogs.
was about 3 years old, and I held up a tree frog, and
My hair is as long then as it is now.
And when I put that little frog in her face, if it didn't jump off and grab onto the hair in front of her eyes, ever since then she's been afraid of frogs.
You say that. I'm not afraid of frogs.
No,
I was afraid of them in that moment. As my hair was flinging around and it was hitting me in the face.
I didn't grow up with a lot of animals. I always had a love for animals, but we just didn't have them. I kind of like Haley. I always, if I found a wild animal, I always felt like, does it need help? Is there something I can do for it?
Even though they're perfectly fine.
Yeah, you learn all that later.
Like the salamander or newts. I used to go into those
Those
water
are
pressure.
salamanders, yeah.
I used to go in the water pressure things that they have on the sidewalks, in front of houses and stuff like that.
Sure.
Is that the water pressure?
No, that's just the main valve for the house. That's okay though.
Okay. Plumbing.
It's your water
so
meter.
there would be salamanders in there all the time, and I would take them out. I would want to take them home. We also had at our old house, we had this like marsh.
Well,
That
there was
was-
a stream that went.
Yeah, it
through.
was behind the house, so we got tons of raccoons and possums and stuff like that. But
You all lived like before 15 years ago when you moved here? Is that what you're talking about? I didn't know
when
that.
I
No,
when I
no,
was
this was-
when I was young, when I was like 5.
Okay, so not on the Dibley?
No,
Okay, sorry.
we lived on a different street.
This is really bad. I should edit that out, but this is just
On
I don't
So-
edit it unless people really need me to.
but there would be tons of just,
Yeah.
I remember Bryce and I would just go back there and we'd go on the stream and we'd find a whole bunch of different animals. I would
Cool.
not mess with the spiders though. If there was
Okay.
a spider when I opened it up, that sucker's closed.
Oh,
And I would
that's
throw
so
rocks in it
unfortunate.
too. That was
You can continue to go anywhere you want with this, but here's a question then that tails off of what I said. For somebody who doesn't think that humans and animals have much in common or doesn't think humans can learn much from animals, how do you refute that? Can you think of why that's an off base? Like, well, actually, dolphins are very intelligent. I don't know. Like, everyone knows dolphins are intelligent, but like,
they also
Where's
play
that?
with their food, so that's a
I play with
that's
my food.
You have more connections with dolphins than we thought.
Good,
Yeah. Okay.
good.
I think looking at animals play, whether it's a bird, using something to slide down a roof with snow, and then fly back up with it to slide down again.
Aw.
Obvious it's playing. To whether it's like you mentioned, dolphins playing, other animals play. But look, I mean, your education definitely goes much farther than mine, and considering the biological functions, how many things are caused by hormones that we share with animals.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just start there to try to convince people that all those things we share in common. How can we not act
Right.
in many ways the same as animals? Watch the breakdown of society when it happens. We're going to look more like wild animals than we're going to look like humans. I don't think it's that big of a stretch to try to show people the commonalities.
I hope that breakdown is hyperbole and that it ends up being like revolution. I don't know. Like, I hope it just kind of is a realigning of society's values and principles towards something that ultimately can become better and not just the crumbling. But
I
that
think
that leads to the last question about what's something broken in society and what's a solution for it. I mean, not to jump straight to that, but
I think something that we need to fix is this like, electoral college. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand. I understand why they had it in the first place, but
Right.
why one person should have a larger portion than
Right.
the other people just because they live in a place that's a little bit more sparse.
Right.
Obviously, I'm being very plain about it. It's not everything about it, but that's just not how it should go.
I
Like,
mean, even just the idea that some places that I mean, you talked about a lot of things being federal. I think that elections should just be more robustly, like the right to vote and the easiness of being able to vote should be much more accessible and uniform throughout the country. I'm not saying that states shouldn't be able to run their elections. I'm just saying that it's just absurd that people in like Houston, have to wait hours and there's so few ballot boxes and you have to do it at this such a specific time, whereas somebody in Oregon has weeks to sit at
we've
their
had
kitchen
mail-in
table. And
ballots for years, and
Mhm.
some people are
And it was
like,
completely
"That's gonna be corrupt."
until President 45 made it this hypercharged thing. Republicans in Oregon were totally down with mail-in voting and said it was such a wonderful thing. Now it's politically unpopular with MAGA to say it, so they're going back on what they previously said, and
Because
now they're
people with education and people who want to, but they're not going to vote Republican as much as people without.
it's a bold statement.
But people who generally are more educated tend to start to align beliefs a little bit middle left.
There's truth to that. There's truth to that, and they would say it's because education is actually indoctrination. But and I'm not going
Didn't
to
you
say,
just
and
have a
I'm not
video
going to say
about
that
that
that's
this
not
morning?
ever valid.
I did.
I felt because I'm empathetic, I think, in my heart. It doesn't always come out in my actions, but that sounded bad. I am a dick. No, in middle school, high school, and college, friends of mine who came from conservative families and were truly in this cognitive dissonance and this frustration of like everything I learn at home I'm told is stupid, backwards, wrong, and unscientific to what I've learned at school, and everything I learn at school I'm told is backwards, hellish, demonic, and actually wayward at home. Like that's a tough dissonance to deal with. And so I always felt sympathetic and like was like, okay, I'll try to listen to you. I also did probably in middle school. I actually bullied someone for sure about her Christian beliefs, and we're friends now still to this day. But like the way I went about it, I think was wrong and harassing. So
Well, I mean, I don't know if I should necessarily say this because I don't think it's necessarily always true. When I was in college, from what I know, what I remember, there was not like a Democratic group that met every week
okay,
in college that had to do with my university.
okay,
But there was a university group, like a Republican group.
okay.
And I think it's kind of funny
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, okay, you are all going through this education.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be here to support you. Yeah. But there's only like 10 of them.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know how big the group was. I
Interesting.
never went.
Yeah, this
but
is a public university in Colorado. It's definitely different
Yeah.
from like the whole UO experience, where there's definitely college Dems, and if there's college Republicans, I don't know what their membership is like and stuff.
Yeah.
I went to a school where there was college Republicans, and it dwindled down towards not being able to even have meetings because no one bothered to show up. But there was definitely like the political advocacy groups, that there were like 5 or 6 of them, and the college Democrats were considered the most middle and centrist, whereas we had a group called Coral, CORAL, Carlton's Organized Radicals, Activists, and Leftists, that was like Bernie is a freaking Bernie's too conservative, that kind of thing.
I love
You know?
Bernie.
I love Bernie too. I love Bernie as a person and his integrity in general.
Bernie seems to be one of the more honest faces you'll see in Washington. He tells it the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I can respect that.
Yeah.
I may not believe everything he says, but I can respect him greatly.
Right.
Well, Jesus was a socialist.
Electoral college. There we go. I like that. All we had to do is get to hour and a half, and you got Hailey like, Jesus is a socialist. Remember that. She's like, Thomas, I don't want to go on your podcast. Now she's the one throwing the most radical stuff out, which is also not radical because, I mean, there's a strong case to be made. Jesus was a socialist.
Yeah, there is. I'm not sure if I'd go as far as socialist. He definitely was a liberal. I would
He
definitely say
believed that it was harder
very
for
liberal.
a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it was for man to enter the eye of a needle, right? Something like that.
And he definitely felt that it was important. I should say, your neighbor's feelings were important.
Yes.
He definitely felt that.
Do you think that because he spent time with prostitutes, what was the nature of that time? Do you think
Well,
they
I
got it
think
on?
he-
How empty must their lives have, maybe he felt their lives were empty, and he just felt like they needed something more positive in their life.
Yeah.
Now I'm regretting everything in this podcast I have said. I'm okay putting this out. This isn't going to age poorly in 10, 20 years. If and when I run for political office, then yeah, so he asked people if Jesus got it on with prostitutes. But, open dialogue, right? That's what podcast's all about. My podcast anyway. But something broken in society, Brian, and some solution towards it,
Wow, I'm thinking about that, and again, looking at it with eyes over so many years, there just seems like so many different things. But I think that we're not going to see progress on many things until we see term limits in every government office that is a political office that represents people, and that includes the courts. I also think that this gerrymandering has to stop, and we need to go back to where people are equally represented in the precincts. I also feel that lobbying should happen. Yes, I think lobbying should happen, but money should be taken out of the lobbying process. If you have a cause that you want Congress to pass, you need to fight for your cause. You need to show research. You need to show support from the constituents, and fight your case that way.
Debate it out.
Stop paying these people off to pass your agenda. I think until we can really see those things fixed, we're not going to see a lot of change in Washington.
Yeah, just because you want something doesn't mean the majority of people want something.
Right.
Stop forcing other people to do your thing.
But the fact that you can pump $9 million into someone's pocket and $3 million into someone else's and $2 million into someone else's to get your way, that's not how it should be done.
It's like,
this is supposed to be a democratic republic,
Yeah.
and or constitutional republic, but which is democracy. We can argue semantics, but that's representation of the people, and we are not seeing the people in this nation represented properly.
yeah.
I think that's true. And I think they've got us pretty well by the whatever.
The huevos.
To be at each other's throats.
Yeah.
Not think about who's really running the game, and just think about my neighbor who posted something that I don't like, or my,
It goes to that
my
cartoon.
opponent.
I wish I could remember it, but it's the king standing there, and his counsel is saying, "Sire, you don't have to convince the people with pitchforks to attack the people without pitchforks. You just have to convince them that the people without them want to take away their pitchforks." It was something like that. I know I completely adulterated it,
Yeah.
but that it just makes me think of that. Right now our government is doing everything it can to just keep us, like you said, at each other's throats.
Right.
Because that way we won't get down to the bottom and get their asses out of Washington and get people in there that'll actually do something for the betterment of this country.
Most explicitly in terms of parties, I think the wisdom that was there in the framers, I'm not somebody who just wants to dismiss all of that. I'm also not somebody who wants to lionize all of that, right? So I want to know about it, and I want to also bring in a more holistic form of knowledge and say wisdom from native cultures was important. Wisdom from these immigrant cultures is important. All of it is important, right? Nothing should be completely discounted in that.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't like parties. Many of them did not. They believed it would devolve into factionalism that we see today, right?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily want to be too much talking about just like, oh, you were with this party and now you're not. But that is the case, I know, with you, Brian. And it is the case, I know, with both of you. Like in maybe 10, 15 years ago, would say I'm more conservative and I'm more with Republicans.
Well, in high school, I thought I was Republican, and I just didn't know anything.
I think that's great.
I didn't know.
I just want people to know that, because like we live in this world where people want to pretend like you don't exist, I guess. People don't want to see people being fluid and changing in their life, or saying, actually, that party's values have gone in a direction I don't like, and because
Well,
they
it's
have
not
this,
even necessarily the party. It's the people who have formed the party to be what they wanted it to be, which isn't something that everybody wants.
right.
Like, it's not the party it was.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I know that the general rule of thumb, like, what the party wants to do hasn't necessarily changed, but I think the people in it have become different.
I feel it is. I feel the Republican Party has slid hard to the right. I think that many of the Republican ideals are still there. It's just because the party slid so far to the right, those ideals seem more central, if you will. My shift, I was very, very conservative Christian, to the point that we would go to other, quote, churches and basically sit there and take notes and judge them on how many different ways they were going to hell because of how they were doing everything wrong.
What a gross process.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Makes
saying
for-
that I can't see why it would have been appealing. I mean, I think people are doing that kind of high horsey judge shit on many facets of society.
I totally
You
agree.
just happen to go to these churches and do it there.
But I think, and you touched on it when you talked about education, and Hailey, again, you mentioned it as well. The more we learn, that just means we have more information that we base the decisions we make off of. We have these wars in this country on education. Right now in Florida, you have DeSantis wanting to interview students before they can go into a university, find out where they are politically, so
wow.
they can determine whether these students are being indoctrinated. Of course, these students are going to go more liberal, because the more you learn, the more you realize it's not all about you. There are other people that are walking this life alongside you, and you have to take care of each other in order for all of you to make it through. So, it's just unfortunate that it's being labeled in such a negative light right now in society.
Yeah. Well, as a wrap up, let me say that, okay, this podcast is kind of just a personal fun project of mine that I enjoy, and the fact that it's somewhat steadily received a slightly growing audience is appreciated, and I'm glad. I want to be a public figure who can try to be an example of, hey, I'm very imperfect, I'm very much an idiot in some cases, but let's do something positive together, right?
Join out with other idiots.
Yeah. But in the world where I wanted to create a podcast that grew to be like, yeah, this is like my full-time job, this is something really cool, a concept that I would love to execute on that I had yet to do until today was just intergenerational communication. I've never had a guest of a different generation than another guest and me on the show talking. And even now, it's two millennials and a Gen Xer, right? A millennial and a Zoomer-ish millennial and a Gen Xer.
Mostly
So it's
millennial.
yeah, but we're 3 years apart. So this is still not diverse. It just is a little more diverse in terms of age experience than in the past. I think it'd be an awesome podcast to do something more where it's like every show is about people from different generations coming
cool.
together, right? That could be really cool. But I think you've learned that I'm just having a conversation with two people that are in my life, that this is fun. It ends up being that I think we ended up having some really interesting, substantive, and at times beautiful and thoughtful things to say. So thank you for that. This was awesome. Is there anything else? I mean, we've plugged you both, so I don't have to cover that. They know where to find your TikTok. They know.
Right here.
I'm putting all of it on the screen again. Your website, and I don't think you really need people to find your Instagram, but it's this. Okay, there's that.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure, y'all. Thanks for being on the show.
This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Cool. Peace. Bye, everybody.